but I'll pass it over to Satya to get started.
Awesome. Yeah. So thank you for sharing the poll results. I think 50% of the folks mentioned chat with data to get insights. So would be great to know what those chat options are. So I can even show that during the demo today itself. So if you don't mind sharing that in the Zoom chat. Then I think the second one, 23% folks were like proactively monitor and report discrepancies. So that's a good one. I think Sanjeev just pinged saying data integrity is an important aspect for conclusion. So thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think there were some folks around at the bench data capture and create reports for auditors. So we will share some of those as well. But yeah, I'll definitely try and focus on chatting with data to get insights as I'm kind of demoing this. So thank you for sharing those results with us. Okay, on that note, I'm going to share my screen and we will go from there. So give me 1 second. It's nice and sunny in Seattle, so my face is kind of getting reflection of the sunlight. Okay, brilliant. So thank you all for joining in. I know folks are mainly from North America, different parts of the US and Canada. So thank you for joining in. If you're outside North America, it'd be good to like put that on the chat. Maybe I missed it, but welcome everyone. Today, we'll talk about Scibot AI. For those who don't know what Scibot is, it's an alternative to like ELN and LIMS system. We're focused more on data science and AI use cases because old school ELN and LIMS don't really solve for the outcomes that a scientist or a computational person is looking for. So we'll look for some of those examples why modern biotech companies use Scibot for specifically for the data science and AI use cases and how Scibot help you build the right data foundation as well. So we'll touch upon those elements as well. But yeah, in terms of the agenda, today, like we'll talk about with the introduction of LLMs, one of the challenges that I've seen over the last 2 years is R&D data is like not ready for LLMs. Obviously you can feed it directly, but think of like this meeting, right? If I just feed let's say all of my meeting notes to LLM over the last 6 months, even then I would have to parse out and figure out what meeting notes is relevant, right? In the same vein, or what actions can I take from those meeting notes? So on the same vein, like let's say if you run an industrial bio company and it's a bioprocessing company where you're designing microbial strains with commercial viability, I think figure out is the growth media and the optimal culture condition, and basically want to select the right assays. And for that, I think there's a lot of pre-work that goes in before the data is even fed into any sort of LLM foundation model or even creating embeddings out of it, right? So we'll touch upon those subjects today. So if you are building your own AI infrastructure or if you use any of the old school ELN and LIMS and you're facing any challenges, I would love to know like from you what those might be. And then we'll touch upon like the Scibot AI and what functionalities Scibot offers. Okay, a few more folks are trickling in, so I just added them to the event as well. Welcome, welcome. So we're just talking about the agenda. We'll touch upon what does Scibot AI offers, and then I'll go straight into the standardized the data model. The example that I gave, the industrial bio company where I have to select the right assays. I have to make sure that strain I design is stable. How does that work? How do I standardize my data model so I can get some of those answers from my data? And then we'll talk about like how you can talk to your data within the Scibot platform, and how that can help you to generate real-time insights as well. And then we'll touch upon some couple of other aspects of like a lot of our customers start with flat files like Microsoft Excel, Word document, PDFs. So we'll touch upon how AI is helping like them when they use Scibot to convert that into actionable protocols. And then lastly, about security and privacy, because with LLMs, like it's very important as you build your own kind of proprietary data set, how do you make sure like it doesn't get cross-trained or, and what are the policies that Scibot has to ensure that customer data is sacrosanct? So we'll talk about some of those controls as well. If you could explain how Scibot can integrate with Microsoft suite of apps, Power Platform, Power Apps, Azure. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely touch upon that as well. Is Scibot alternate to LIMS or work together with LIMS? Both. So we like to call Scibot as the all ELN and LIMS because we don't like the word ELN and LIMS. It's just very old school, and most of the ELN and LIMS in the market, they don't really support data science and AI use cases. That's why we like to call Scibot as alt ELN and alt LIMS for modern companies who have aspirations or are building AI infrastructure in-house. And we support most modern companies in Boston, across the world, and Europe, Southeast Asia as well now. Scibot is basically a SciSpot AI functionality. So that's what we are kind of touching upon it. But if you do want to know more about SciSpot, we can like do a separate call on that as well. But focus today is like the SciSpot AI functionality that we call Scibot. Okay, I think there's one more question about data integrity. So I'll definitely cover the chain of custody and data integrity aspect as well today. So thank you for keeping this engaged, and yeah, feel free to like putting your questions in the chat as well, and happy to answer them. So coming back to the slide, R&D data is not ready for LLMs. What do I mean by that? So as I mentioned, a lot of companies adopt like ELN and LIMS that are not tailored towards data science and AI. So some of the R&D data that you store, like notebook entries, registries, your assay results, or the data coming from your instruments, that data is not connected into a standardized data model, and some of your unstructured ELN data. So to my example of the industrial biotech company where I'm designing microbial strains with commercial viability, it's really hard to sift through like my different registries, my different notebook entries, and how do I bring that together in one harmonized data format. And that's where kind of SciSpot helps using AI functionality to basically build your data model. And once you have your data model, it becomes much more easier if you create your own embeddings or leverage SciSpot embeddings to be able to answer some of the questions that you're looking for. So as an example, that data model that I'm talking about is specific to like, let's say you have projects and you want to link the projects to researchers, and then you have different experiments within that. And then for those experiments, you have strains. Remember, the example I gave was like a bioprocessing example, but this could apply to like this data model is specific to the bioprocessing workflow that I was talking about. So even before you think of LLMs or using generative AI, it's really important to build this foundation within the company. And a lot of customers we work with, what they do is they either migrate from these old school ELN and LIMS to SciSpot, or they're building this data infrastructure in-house. And we help in both cases where we help them stitch together this data with a standard schema. So you have a data dictionary where you have metadata associated with each of these stages. And the idea is that the way you want to build this data model is to be able to get the outcome or the answers you're looking for. So in our case, the example that I gave was you want to figure out the quality growth media and optimal culture conditions. So if you want to get to those answers, you have to have a strong data foundation in place. Once you have the data foundation, it becomes much easier. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch directly to like SciSpot itself. So what SciSpot helps do is it basically helps you build these data sets and which are connected with each other. So for example, I can build different schema of these data tables using the template that SciSpot offers. An example of that is what we call lab sheets. So within lab sheet, you can build these data dictionary by using different templates. And it also understands using AI what is the source of the data and what type of outcomes you're looking for, right? And it helps you connect these data sets into the schema that I was just showing you. So you have the right data foundation for your company. So in this case, the example that I was kind of giving you was bioprocessing example. So for this example, you can build like different data sets quite easily within SciSpot and make sure that they're connected with each other, right? So as you're building these lab sheets, it will make sure that you have connections between them, but it would also make sure that you can set up certain filtering criteria or certain criteria to slice and dice this data. And then once this data foundation is set up, you can then use Scibot to be able to like ask specific questions. So, in this case, for example, I already have some examples set up. So let me show you. So for example, like I can build like different scatter plots. I can also do things related to biomass. I want to just go back to the biomass because I'm giving an example of bioprocessing here. So give me 1 second and I will show you the bioprocessing example. Okay, so in this case, what I'm showing you is if you want to check the performance of your batches based on biomass and cell density, you can leverage Scibot, right? So in this case, I already have a prompt that I've kind of pre-populated where I'm asking to give me this graph that is specific to the performance of my batches that are stored in this lab sheet. And then it automatically generates that graph in real time on demand as I'm asking these questions. So usually like what I've seen in the past is most of our customers used to go to computational folks, or customers who are coming from old school ENL LIMS used to like do a lot of like manual work to get to this stage. But now like wet lab scientists or non-technical folks can go in, open the lab sheet. So this lab sheet is for the bioreactor runs, and then just start Scibot and give Scibot that specific prompt. And it would basically build a graph for you to be able to check the performance of your batches based on biomass and cell density. And then you can like save this graph into your notebook in Scibot, or like you can use Scibot API if you kind of have your own infrastructure and want to push this data, you can do that as well. So I hope that makes sense at a high level for the example that I was giving for bioprocessing, but we'll keep going. I'm going to shuffle between the slides and the actual product as well. But for the folks who are just joining in, just want to kind of summarize what I've covered so far is using Scibot AI. Even before you think of LLMs or asking specific questions, first thing it helps you with is build a foundational data model. Like, what is that data model that you need to have to be able to answer the questions that you're looking for, right? Once you have that data model in place, then you can use Scibot to ask specific questions. And in this case, the question that I asked was, I want to check the performance of my batches based on biomass and cell density. And that's the graph I got from Scibot itself. So that's what we've covered so far as an example. But any questions, feel free to add on the chat, but I'm going to keep going. Okay, the next thing is like talk to your data, meaning like you can ask specific questions to your data. It's not just analytics, but in this case, let's say that I want to like summarize the key findings from samples submitted by ABC Biotech. As a CRO, I just want to like ask that specific question. Once a sample comes in, I can do that. The other example that I'm showing in this GIF is I want to display the heat map for ADME data to identify best hit molecules based on like solubility or permeability. So in that case, like it prepares the heat map as well. In the previous example, when I was showing you the product, I was showing you another example of the graph. So think of Scibot as like having the contextual data foundation in place. Once you have that, then it becomes much easier to talk to your data. And this talking is not just like random insights, but very specific to the data model that pertains to your company and what you're trying to achieve. And those are the questions you can ask and get results rather than, what is the old school way of doing this? You basically first have data in an old school ELN or LIMS system. You have some data in your Excel or Microsoft Office, and then you merge, aggregate the data. You maybe use a Postgres table to like build 5 different tables. Then you have like some sort of transformation to connect those tables. And then you will create the embeddings and do some prompt engineering to get to those results. So what Scibot AI is helping you is you don't need to use an old school ELN and LIMS, like use a modern system such as Scibot, or you can use your own system as well. But it helps you kind of build that data foundation and then get to insights in like few clicks. And then there are some more examples of insights that I want to show here where let's say I want to figure out what are the recommended parameters for improving the yield in my protein expression experiments. So I can do that as well. So it can get way more advanced. Um, Obviously, we're like learning in terms of from a scientific perspective how advanced we can make it, because some customers like use GraphPad and there's a lot of statistical significance in there, but it doesn't have the advanced features that Scibot AI offers, right? So we're going one step above like some of the features that customers are used to. Um, so in this slide, like you can also show trends in gene expression level from like RNA-seq data over the past 6 months, right? So the AI has that statistical significance, but also it's able to do the time series of your charts based on the data stored within Scibot. And the beauty is you don't have to like move from one system to another as you're doing it, because that's where you lose a lot of chain of custody. Let's say if you have like a data visualization tool, and then you have a data management old school ELN LIM system, and then you're building something in-house, it's really hard to connect all of those together. But with Scibot, you can easily connect what you're building in-house and be able to get to those insights. And I think there was one question on the chat was how we integrate with the MS Office suite. So Scibot connects with like the Microsoft Blob Storage. We also connect with using AI, like you can bring in any Office kind of files like SharePoint, DocX, Excel, and convert that into like these actionable data sets, if you will, structured data sets. But is there any specific use case you have around Microsoft? I'm happy to double click if you put that on the chat itself. One other thing that I want to show is like you can connect your Google Sheet, Excel, PDFs, and docs to notebook entries. So this is one of the most popular use case that we heard from wet lab scientists. And what you can do here is in Scibot Notebook. So within Notebook, Scibot offer templates. And within those templates, you can, let's say you have a template for a specific reagent or any materials protocol from Thermo or Sigma Aldrich or protocols.io. You can create that into an actionable protocol by importing the PDF, and SciSpot AI can read through the images, through the tables, through the calculations to be able to convert this into an actionable protocol. So what I'm showing here is like the product in action. I can import a PDF in this case, and what it would do is it would basically convert that PDF into an actionable protocol. So it would automatically like figure out what tables and templates I have and how that kind of get converted into actionable steps. So that way, like you don't have to again do that manual processing of like first understanding the PDF or any kind of reagent protocol from Thermo or Sigma Aldrich, and then be able to like connect it to your ALM systems, right? So that's the idea. You can do that for any kind of flat files. The most common flat files we've seen so far has been like PDF protocol specific, but you could do this for other use cases as well. And then like coming back to like talk to your data functionality, you can, so this is like a notebook page within SciSpot, and you can use SciSpot AI to say like, tell me where I've placed my strain ABC123 on the assay plate, right? So it would basically find the well position and where exactly it's stored as well. So in this case, what it did was it went through this data and it found the exact ABC123 strain ID. It also gave me the unique identifier of this plate and helped me understand like where exactly it's been stored within the platform itself. So you can like ask many more specific questions such as these inside the notebook as well, and it has the context of the page, but it also has a global context, right? So if you want to do something similar across the platform, you can switch the context from the top and make it global. And as you're doing this within the SciSpot AI functionality, it also keeps the history, which is team specific, right? So it has all the relevant history in terms of how what data have been analysis have been run or what questions have been asked by the team members, right? So you can sift through like any of that information if you want to go back or start a new chat. So it has all the context associated with your specific account. Okay. So we talked about, like for the folks who just joined in, again, a quick summary. We talked about how important it is to like build your data foundation before even thinking about AI, and why like you don't want to use old school LLMs because they're not designed as like databases or data lakes, right? They're designed as like just capturing data or doing basic data management. But in the AI world, you don't want to do that, right? You want to make sure you build your own proprietary data set and have connected information, not just to like get to insights quickly, but also to future-proof your company. So and then we talked about how do you talk to your data once it's in SciSpot, from not just insights, but specific examples of your notebook, analytics, some statistics, how you can do that within the system itself. And then I briefly touched upon how to convert your flat files into actionable protocols, right? So you can go from like step 1 to step Z for protocols that you might receive or reagent protocol from like Thermo, Sigma, Aldrich, or any other kind of source, third-party source where you want to follow a specific step. You can do that by easily converting those flat files into actionable steps within the SciSpot itself. And then we also talked about like how you can ask specific questions of like, where is my strain and what plate map within the system itself. So I think Stu mentioned using MS List for lab management. Also, as a result, does SciSpot integrate well with lists? Yep. So I'm assuming you're talking about SharePoint list here. Is that correct? Microsoft list, or is that something else? Yep. So SharePoint list, yes. So we have a direct connector with Microsoft, Azure, and SharePoint list as well. So if it's SharePoint list, then we can easily bring that to LabSheet, and then you can easily do all the things that I just showed you within Scibot. I would recommend like building a good data foundation in list. If you have a good structure, then it's much easier to kind of get to insights rather than doing pre-processing and post-processing of that data. Do you do any post-processing on those lists right now? Okay. Yeah, no worries. So you can connect it with Scibot Lab Sheet, but within the product itself, if in future you want to like, let's say, do some pre-processing and post-processing, you can also do that. So I can show you an example of that as well. So within Scibot Lab Sheets, there is an embedded Jupyter Hub. And let's say you brought data from SharePoint list and you want to run some transformation. It could be as simple as like find, replace, spell check, data normalization. You can run that specific script on the data that you just brought in from SharePoint list. And then that's only if you don't want to get to insights, right? Because sometimes the data, how it's stored, needs some sort of post-processing before you can get to like really good LLM-powered analytics. So we can help with that as well. There was one more question that I want to discuss here is, does Scibot have features like calculations, determination, AlphaFold, molecular biology application integrated in it? Yes. So we can do a separate session because you've got quite a few things in there, but short answer is yes. And you can embed like MolBio. So Scibot is chemistry and MolBio aware. So you can embed sequences, protein peptides, and do a lot of different actions on that, and also be able to bring this data from different sources as well. And it's also chemistry aware. And I think some of the analytics example that you're asking, I'm happy to share the video. But in terms of the agenda, I want to keep going. Any
And
more?
also one more,
Oh,
sorry, so I'd say one more thing to add here. So for your MW, that can be determined for your chemicals if you upload any SMILES, mol, or Inchy files. And as Satya is also about to mention, you can basically run any Jupyter scripts to find out any other PI calculations or any other values like that.
100%. So I will go back to the agenda itself. And so yeah, there are a lot of folks who joined in late. So I'm going to summarize again. I apologize if I'm repeating things, but just want to make sure folks who joined late get something out of the session as well. So we talked about how having the right data foundation is so important and how Scibot Lab Sheets can help you build that right data foundation. And I gave an example of like, if you're designing microbial strains with commercial viability, how can you like figure out quality growth media and optimal culture condition using Scibot AI? Then we talked about different example of like talking to your data, generating real-time insights, and converting flat files into like actionable protocols. So at the bench, you can execute this. So at the bench, Scibot supports iPad execution. So if you have iPad at the bench, you can use that to like action those specific protocols or capture protocol deviations. So that's what we've covered so far. And the last agenda item that I had was security and privacy. So this is super important in the day of generative AI and foundation models. Every company want to make sure like they protect their data, right? So we follow certain principles in Scibot AI to be able to make sure that customer data never leaves your Scibot instance, right? And none of the data that you saw, none of the foundation model or examples that I gave, none of that is used to train any models, any external models. What we do is we use like a custom deployment off the shelf. So it doesn't really goes via internet or use any kind of centralized training models. So your data basically belongs to your instance. And then this is something that's been common throughout Scibot history is like applying SOC 2 and HIPAA controls. So we apply those to Scibot AI as well. And we use AWS and Azure. So we also rely on our cloud providers to make sure all of these security controls are satisfied from the cloud itself. And then lastly, like customers can also choose to switch off Scibot AI. So not everybody use Scibot AI functionality in our customer base. Some prefer to use it. Some basically are in the early stages and they don't want to get to insights. So they basically choose to switch it off as well. So that option is there, right? So you have that peace of mind. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. And if you're using it, you also have a peace of mind to make sure that data never leaves that instance and there's no kind of central model that trains on top of that. So yeah, that's like our AI policy, if you will. Um, I think that was pretty much the agenda. And for the folks who joined
Quick
late,
question.
go ahead.
Sorry, Satya, quick question here. So, what's the service model Thomas is asking? Does each client need a bespoke solution and dedicated engineers, or can I easily purchase and integrate without further support?
Yeah, so Scibot is a product company, right? We're not a custom solution provider. We're a product company. So it's basically a product. We just configure or recommend like different lap sheet templates for you depending on your workflow. So the setup won't take more than a week. Obviously, it depends what type of use cases you have. If you have like custom integration with certain instruments to validate them might take like a couple of weeks, but everything else is out of the box. You go in, configure the data, and obviously our team will help you set it up. One was what hard.
Amazing.
So there's no hardware needed. We're all like we're completely in like cloud, and our cloud providers help us um, secure GPUs if needed. But for like custom off-the-shelf model, I think you don't really need a GPU. Everything can run like within the infrastructure and within the customer instance.
Do you need
Um,
Scibot individually for each instrument?
No. So remember when I was showing you Scibot, it had a global context and a local context. Global meaning global to your account. So any data that you bring in, so you can bring in data from instruments to Scibot itself, and then Scibot would have that context. So I can quickly show the instrument example as well. So let's say I'm bringing certain data from a specific instrument. So let's maybe just click an example, and that instrument is like, let's add a connection. So SciSpot lets you like connect with various different instruments, but let's say I'm bringing data from Thermo Fisher specific instrument or mass spec. Once I bring in that data, your Scibot would have the context, right? Because that data would get converted into like a structured information within the SciSpot, right? So let's say if I'm bringing LCMS data, so this is an example of like LCMS data. Scibot would have the context now, and then I can ask questions to Scibot. Hey, for this sheet, which is this lab sheet, help me understand what analytics I can run, or you can also ask specific questions based on the metadata that you have that you're getting from the instrument itself. Any more questions? Any thoughts? Anything that you want to cover more, or anything that I missed? I think in the poll, a lot of folks mentioned talk to your data. So if you want to see any particular example, feel free to like ask question there as well.
Yep. So Stu is asking, this might be a challenging question, but we're looking to draw associations all the way from chemical inputs for drug formulation, all the way to in vivo endpoints of mice treated with those formulations. Have any of your customers done this?
So Guru, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So in the platform, you see these databases, they're connected with each other, right? So your compound data is connected with in vivo, your animal studies. Your animal study is connected with your clinical data or other recovery data. So all the data is connected. Entire chain of custody traceability is maintained. So yes, when you ask question, it's not specific to one database. It can be, sometimes it's specific to 10 different databases, couple of notebook entries. So Scibot does have that context. Right? It's not just keyword-based search, it's contextual search. It can answer things specific to a drug candidate, can answer things specific to a sample, or specific to experiment, and that can have hundreds of different associations. So yeah, that's the main value. It's not like normal Q&A answers. The goal here is you can train this AI with your historical data and really extract insights that you could never extract using traditional tools.
And one more question here. What is the information input that Scibot already has?
It is trained with all the public data. So we don't train with any of our customer data. Customer data training happens only in their account. So all the public data, we have our own proprietary ontology that we created many years ago. We keep updating that. So it is trained with millions of data points. So it has all the scientific context, how scientists run experiment, how they design experiment, what is the context for at the bench, then what type of analysis they do to support different type of workflow, what are the reporting needs, what are the regulatory requirements. So it does have all the scientific context. Yeah, you can set up, there's one question from Jan. So you can set up very like selective, like databases with very selective access. You can invite people internally, externally, and then allow them to talk to their data selectively to based on their access level.
Yeah, how do you confirm that insight is not bogus?
I can
It's,
take that. So yeah, in some cases it could be bogus, right? It's AI and it could hallucinate. There are ways to hallucinate AI too, you know. But we do have like evaluation of like what type of insights customers are getting. And the way we kind of try and minimize those hallucination or improve on the evals is be able to provide context, right? So when you create the lab sheet and the data model, you can also provide context, but when we onboard a customer in their account, we also like understand that context and provide to your specific AI to say, you know, when generating graphs, make sure like, you know, you understand this particular workflow. But yes, I've seen examples where AI could hallucinate, and there are ways to minimize that as well.
We minimize this by templatizing things companies want to discover on a day-to-day basis. So accuracy is 100%. Because we are continuously doing prompt engineering, continuously doing additional training. But to reduce any hallucination from AI, we templatize it, make sure it's 100% correct, and they can even create their dashboard for those things they want to track. I don't think we showed AI analytics a dashboard. But yes, by templatizing it, you can do the QC even before onboarding a customer to make sure it works. Not necessarily, you have access to our training portal too, so you can keep training it. From prompt engineering, yes, you will. Currently, that's not self-serve by customers, but yes, we work with our customers, making sure it's close to 100% accurate. It does require collaboration because that's the goal, right? So you don't have to worry about maintenance, data cleanup, prompt engineering. We automate all of that. But we also, in the backend, we are also making as much as possible, as much as self-serve training we can support. So you buy the product and consultancy. Consulting element is included, yes. We even help customers standardize their data model because different companies, based on their techniques they're using, based on the targets they have in their focus, we recommend a different data model. So there's consulting element there. Setting up integration, you can do it, it's self-serve, but sometimes some transformation is required on the data you bring in from instrument. So we support with that. And also AI-based analytics, at least at the time of onboarding, it requires some consulting element, but that's optional. So yes, you buy the product license and you get consulting. Great questions. Any other final questions? Yeah, we do have a dashboard that you can configure simply by writing a bunch of prompts because data is already connected with AI. So you can write prompts that in real time, I want to track the usage of my lab consumable. In real time, I want to track my material cost. In real time, I want to track my instrument utilization. So you can track all of these things in real time. You can set up your own dashboard.
You can see some examples here. I've just shared like our Y Combinator launch link as well. So you can see some examples of what Guru is talking about.
Is the compute cost separate from licensing cost?
No. So we include number of your AI tokens. So different plans have capacity, how many tokens, but we give enough credits. So generally there's no issue. So everything is included in the plan. So you don't have to worry about compute cost or storage cost. So it's a license-based, subscription-based business model based on the seats you buy.
Can you use Scibot to clean imported data on the fly?
Yeah, it depends on the type of data. I want to say yes, but again, it depends on what type of data it is. If it's like as simple as like what examples we've shown, like small bio data, chemistry data, or protocol specific, it would be pretty easy. If it's something different, if you can share the use case, I can tell more. But in some cases, understanding the workflow, I think, helps the accuracy of the output that you get on the fly. But if it's specific to like industrial bio companies, bioprocessing, biomanufacturing, biotherapeutics, R&D, all of those workflows we've seen, like it's pretty accurate. But yeah, would love to know if you have a specific example, and then I can double click on it. Awesome. I think great set of questions. Guru, do you want to put a calendar, or Hannah, shall we give a link in case anybody want to follow up?
Definitely. So in chat right now, I'm going to post a little link and also just screen share to show you folks. So this is our Scibot AI page. You can definitely learn more and just double click on any of the items that Satya was covering today. And at the very bottom, if you scroll down, you'll see you can put in your email to learn more about Scibot, join our waitlist for a free consultation call, and see how Scibot can specifically help your lab and your lab's workflow and use case. So I'll encourage everyone to check out the website and to input your email as well if you're interested.
Brilliant. Thank you for asking amazing questions, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any more questions or want to do a quick consulting. Happy to discuss. If you're building in-house, have other ELNLMs, happy to talk more about it. If you want to use Scibot, happy to touch upon Scibot features as well. But thank you folks for joining me.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you so much.